Okay. Alrighty. So, hello everyone. Welcome back to the media that makes us. We have a really good episode for today. I honestly had forgot about this movie. Well, I didn't forget about it. I always knew it existed, but until I saw it on Netflix, I like the nostalgia. I don't even know if nostalgia is the word because it wasn't that long ago. But for me, it's been so long since I've seen this movie that it really and it's dope. And that's so I'm just going. The movie's called Dope. It came out in 2015. It was directed by Rick, I think Famuyiwa, starring Shamik Moore as Malcolm. And when I tell you this movie was is really good. Like I really ride hard for this movie because it was just that good in my opinion. Like I really enjoyed this movie for so many reasons too. It's really such a good movie. So we're gonna get straight into that, and we're gonna talk about the movie Dope. So I don't even know where to begin. I mean, honestly, it's about geeks. So it's about and literally they refer to themselves as geeks. You got Malcolm, Diggy, and Jib. Jib was I think a Hispanic guy. Diggy was this black, maybe mixed girl, and then you got Malcolm who was this black guy, and they all lived in Inglewood, California, and they grew up in the hood, and they all went to this low end school. They had metal detectors. That's how you know how that school be. But it's just they also love 90s pop culture, 90s hip hop culture, 90s pop culture. They love it all. And I mean he has the Fresh Prince high top fade, which I mean I remember when I was in middle school and going into high school, I rocked the high top fade as well. It's embarrassing, but you know it happened. I had it. I definitely had it because of Fresh Prince. Like I remember watching Fresh Prince, Bel Air, which is is a '90s show, and literally I grew my hair out just so I can get the Will Smith high top fade. It did not look good on me. It did not good, but I kept it for like 2 or 3 years because I really enjoyed that. So the first thing he talks about is his life living there. He doesn't complain about his life living there. He's aware that he's not living in the best conditions, and he's okay. He's not necessarily okay with that, but he knows that that's the reality. That's what he's living. But I think it's so many good things in this movie. So many. So he compares bullying to a bad day. So to some people, as he was talking about being bullied by the jocks or something, was a bad day to them. Versus to them, a bad day is you getting shot while trying to get some food at a restaurant. We're not even talking about. He wasn't even talking about school. This man talking about being in a restaurant, minding your own business, and you just get shot, which happened to one of their classmates. I'm just like, wow. Like, I mean, where I'm from, that doesn't really happen. But like, you still hear about stuff like that happen. It's just crazy to think about that things like that happen. And I think it's funny because they compare being bullied by jocks compared to being bullied by thugs, completely different. You know, in most cliche high school movies, it's always the jocks, the athletes are the ones who's bullying the nerds or the geeks. But in this movie, I mean, there's jocks, but like there's also thugs. Like he really pretty much went to an all black school, except for an exception, and it was ran by the thugs. It was ran by the street boys, who definitely was not fully gang banging, but thought they were gang banging. And I just think that's so interesting that he compares it to like, yeah, I know you think typically the nerds get bullied by jocks, but in this one it's like thugs. Like it's real. It's not some high school cliche mess. Like they had real bullies who was doing real, like literally taking this man's shoe, not asking for no lunch money. Nah, this man had the Jordan threes on, the retro threes, and he's like, "Yeah, come on off them for me. Go ahead, let me get them." You know, and this man had to run for his life with one shoe because he knew that them boys were gonna take it every time. I mean, honestly, I don't even know why he would wear his J's to school after them getting stolen so many times. But hey, you know, if you got the shoes, you might as well wear them. So yeah, I really think that that's something that stood out to me, and how they think that he's whitewashed. They think him and his friends is whitewashed, which is very funny because the name of their band, they have a band, Malcolm, Diggy, and Jib. They have a band called the Oreo, which a lot of black people who are considered whitewash get called Oreo because you know how Oreos are. You got the white cream stuff in the middle, and then you got the the dark cookies on the outside. So like they made that reference, and then that's what they named their band, and that really stands out to me because like that happens a lot. Like that really happens often, especially like if you're black and you go to a PWI or if you go to HBCU. I've always known that that's like a big thing. Where you go to college, yeah. If you go to HBCU or if you go to PWI and you're black, they do consider people whitewashed more. But I mean, honestly, it's still like the same as going PWI or um, going to HBCU. If you're black, you're black. Like that's how the world's gonna see it. So that's why I've always noticed how when it being called an Oreo or whitewash, typically black people say that about other black people. I haven't really seen any other color or race call a black person an Oreo, because typically that's something that they say within each other. But they mention that, and you know, in 2015, that was a thing. I mean, it's always been a thing, but I think that's it's important they emphasize it in that movie because that's how they're being perceived as just some nerds or geeks who really ain't like thug like every. If you're not thug like everyone else, then what are you doing? That's basically what they were trying to exemplify in one of the scenes where they were talking about it, and how the stuff that they were interested in was associated as white stuff. I noticed that because he had a list of like manga and some other pop culture stuff that they were into that was all considered white stuff because the majority of the black people around there didn't really associate themselves with it. And so that's when they had like their own group. That's when they decided that they were going to do their own thing, which I think is important. Like one thing I did like about this movie, they stayed true to themselves. They did not let the peer pressure of all of the mess, all of the situations they were in, they didn't let it get to them. I mean, yeah, you see some character development, you see some changes amongst them, but they did not, like, they still stayed true to themselves. Like when people made fun of him for wearing his 90s pop culture shirts, he was always dressing like he was in the 90s, and people always said something, he still dressed like that from the beginning of the movie to the end. I mean, that's just something that I really stand by, is the fact that they stayed true to themselves throughout the entire movie despite what everyone said about them, and that's something that's important. So let's talk about ASAP Rocky. I know that his part wasn't big in this movie, but I've never seen ASAP Rocky act before. I never saw it, and he did really good in my opinion. Playing Dom, I think ASAP Rocky he did that role. Like it wasn't big, but I think he played it really well. I mean, there's some Tyga was also in there for a few minutes, maybe a few seconds actually, but ASAP Rocky is Dom. I really like that. I really like that. Did not know he was that good at acting. So the movie also starts off with Malcolm getting invited to a party. So they're literally leaving school, and one of the people on the guys on the street, one of their goals is to try to steal the bikes from the kids. If they can't even go home at peace. I was like, dang, they really got it tough. They can't even go home. And so Malcolm actually gets invited over by Dom. You know, sends him to go talk to this girl, I think her name Nakia, yeah, Nakia, to go talk to Nakia, talking about basically he just sends us over to deliver a message to spit game. I mean, honestly, and Nakia, she was good. She knew what she was doing. She told her, like, be a man and come tell me whatever you got to say yourself. Don't send some little boy over here to spit your game, to say what you want to say. But he got invited to a party. Nakia did this. She knew what she was doing. She said she was not gonna go to the party unless Malcolm went. I know that had to change Malcolm's life. The way the way that boys fantasized over her after meeting her, yeah, that seems typical. That seems just about right. What he did afterwards justified in my opinion, because like that really is how it be though. Like I like how they emphasize like how it really do be, how it really, that's really what be going through people's mind through those times. And I mean, he's 18, 17, 18, senior in high school. Yeah, Nakia, she said, be a man, tell him to be a man and come talk to me, and I ain't going to the party unless you go. Boom, opportunity right there. So of course, you know, Dawn wants her at the party, so invites him to the party, and so much stuff happens in that party. Zoe Kravitz, I believe that's how you pronounce her name. I might be mistaken, but she did pretty good in this movie. I know she was in Batwoman, but I really think she did a good in this part. This movie playing Nakia, I really liked it. But when it was at the party, she came on him strong. I mean, I think his facial expression. That's why I think that Shamik Moore acted really good in this movie, because his facial expression, everything he was reacting to, and how he was reacting, is exactly what I probably would have reacted, or what any other boy would have reacted in that situation. I mean, he's a virgin. He never did anything before. Um, he's never been to a party like this before. He never danced with a girl before. So he was like trying his best. He was trying, but you could tell how nervous, how innocent he really was, and wasn't like he had never done any of this stuff. And you see that on his face and the way he moves, and I just think that they captured that perfectly, the innocence that he has. But of course, this clothes gets shot up. I mean, it was bound to happen. And Dom ends up going to jail, and Dom ends up putting the drugs, dope, and a phone, and I think maybe some money or gun in the bag that Malcolm had with him. So that's how he ends up getting the dope. So before we get to that, I just gotta say something. Malcolm is smart and ambitious. He's very arrogant, as they explain, and as his counselor explains, but he's not arrogant as in like he's terrible with it. He's arrogant because he know he's smart. He's arrogant because people underestimate him. This boy asked that girl to prom. This man literally asked Nakia. I don't know how Nakia is. She gotta get her GED, so she's not in high school, or at least she's not in school. That boy asked her to prom, straight up. Like, he was nervous, he was shy, but he came through. And I think Nakia see that as the difference between him and Dom. Malcolm gonna say what he need to say. Dom may send someone else to say it, but Malcolm gonna say what needs to be said. I really respect that about him. And so then after this, we get Dom end up calling him. He ends up, someone calls the phone. Of course, he's scared, nervous, and asks for the drug money. And then he gets ready to take it to him, and that's when Dom tells him, "No, don't do that. Do it. Take it to AJ instead." So he goes to AJ house, and you meet this other guy and his sister, Lily. Lily was a character. Lily was different. She's a model in real life. That scene with Lily, the most tempting I've really seen. Something like that was very tempting. He didn't fold. Well, he kind of folded, but he still kept his eye on the ball. But she also gets drugs named after her. That's very strange. That's very funny to me as well. But he went there and they recorded a song with the guy that they were supposed to meet, which turns out it was the wrong guy. It was the guy's son that they had met, but they ended up recording a song. Really cool guy, and they end up going to get some cheese fries, which it's a little side story when Jib, Diggy, and the Lily's brother, they all went to get cheese fries, and of course the drug guys who chased them before end up showing up, asking where the money at, all that stuff, and altercation, shots got fired, they had to get out of there. But but Malcolm almost lost his virginity to Lily. I mean, this man he was ready to give it up. I mean, I don't understand why. Well, I understand why it didn't happen. She ended up throwing up on him, and after she took some Molly and went crazy. But I mean, that was one of the most craziest scenes in the entire movie, in my opinion. But one of the best scenes too. So yeah, so much is happening in this movie, and eventually, I think Malcolm ended up going to meet with the Harvard alumni, and it turns out it's the guy he was supposed to deliver the drugs to. Ain't that a coincidence? Something completely different. So that's when he ends up not giving him the drugs or whatever, and he ends up deciding to sell it himself and exchange it for Bitcoin. I believe he got like 10,000 of it in cash and then sells it in Bitcoin. But they came up with a whole plan, an entire plan on how to do it. And Malcolm, of course, was the ringleader. I think it's funny they had this guy, this white guy from camp, that they were seeing. He was trying to. He wanted to use the he wanted to use the pass because he felt that he earned it. Which, they explain how you can't just earn it. That it ain't something earned. It's literally something that black people have, that black people used. It was an offensive term back in the day that white people used to use against black people. But I think they literally addressed that situation perfectly, because the amount of times, especially when I was in middle school and high school, that white people thought that they were like really cool with you to the point where they could use that term if you were to use it. But as you saw, Diggy was explaining, it don't matter how cool, how close you can be. She respects him. You can't just say it. Like, you can't just assume that you can say it. And I think they handled that scene. That scene was very much needed, very much handled perfectly in that movie. So of course, as we know, they're selling the drugs now for money online on the black market. Honestly, I didn't think it was the best idea. Yeah, I mean, of course, I never would have did any of the stuff they did. I would have handled it completely different. My dumb stuff probably would have took the police. But hey, they sold it on the black market, and we also get a Rick Fox appearance. Did not expect that. I literally forgot the fact that he even had an appearance in this movie. I think he's like the principal, but yeah, Rick Fox shows up in the movie, and that really was something that they were literally in the lab taking the drugs. And I think that's an important scene in the movie. Literally, Malcolm is shaking as he's trying to dispense the drug into the to weigh it and then put it in the capsules. He literally could not do it with a steady hand because he knows this is some deep stuff. He knows that this is one that he can truly handle. And I think it emphasizes his innocence and how this isn't necessarily something that he saw himself doing and not something he necessarily wanted to do, but he's now thrown in a situation where he feels like this is the best thing to do. And also another scene is when them guys who jumped him for his shoes tries to jump him again, and this time he has a gun and he's shaking the entire time he has the gun pulled at him. Once again, he's never did this before. They know he's never did this before. But the audacity he has to pull a gun on them, I think is like eye-opening to everyone that was involved, because that's when Malcolm and his friends were realizing they were in over their heads, especially when the drug dog from the police force came and was they do the random drug test, not test, random drug search or whatever that they have in school, and literally he would have the drugs on him and literally walk straight past the guard. But because he's a geek, once again using their geekness to their advantage, because he's a geek, no one truly expects him to have this stuff. Perfect way to use this. So, but I do think Malcolm starts to overthink and overcompensate for things, because literally Nakia came to see him, and she started asking questions about the dope and everything, because she knows he's involved, and of course he assumes that she's working for Dom and spying on him, and he messes things up with old girl for the time, which usually happens in these type of movies. He messes it up with her. But something I wrote down: Malcolm has a high voice. He doesn't have some low, deep voice. I think that's very important. It shows how young he really is. Like, a lot of movies use these older people, and I'm pretty sure Malcolm was older than he was in the movie, but I think it's important how a lot of movies use older people who are in their 20s to play teenagers. They don't look like teenagers. You can tell they don't look like teenagers, but this movie, teenagers look like teenagers. Literally. Malcolm and all his friends look 17, 18. Literally look their age. And his voice matched his age as well. I think the fact that his voice wasn't so deep and so manly, well, it wasn't, it was still manly, but I think that his voice being as high as it was, and him being able to talk the way he did, important because he's very young in this movie. I don't think people realize how young looking, or how innocent a 17-year-old can look. I know myself, I'm not 17 anymore, I'm older, but I know when I was 17 I was extremely skinny, extremely small, different from being 17 to 19, from to be 20. So I think like them having that and showing how they actually look their age is important. Always important to a movie. Very important. So we're gonna get towards the end where there's a gun scene. Let me see, which I already explained, but he ends up getting the girl at the end. After they finish selling all the drugs, he outsmarts the Harvard man, of course, and he ends up giving him some of the money. Um, and he literally explains how he can't, like, the dude can't come for him because they're both from the same place, and how they're all gonna believe that they're all the same. And he really outsmarts him and breaks into his firewall because it's that simple. And I think that's important because Malcolm not only did he outsmart the drug dealer, he also outsmarted the drug lord. Literally, never seen that before. I mean, usually those movies like that don't be ending that good when drugs are involved, and to the extent that they were in this movie. But no one got killed. No one was dead in this movie. I mean, people got shot, no doubt, but I don't think anyone just died in this movie, which I really like. He didn't end up going to prom with Nakia. I think she offered 6 flat tickets, and they ended up just chilling, if they even chill. But I also think one of the most important thing is this movie outlays the theme. Like, it literally outlays the theme at the end with Malcolm's monologue, where he talks about his application to get into Harvard, his essay. It talks about how many people see him as a geek. Is he really in the wrong for doing what he did? Does it just because he sold dope online and sold $100,000 worth, does that really make him a thug like the way society portrays him, or is he just a kid who got caught in a situation that he had to handle? I think that is so important because there is always 2 sides to every story, 2 perspectives, or 2 plus perspectives. There's always different ways things can be interpreted, and he was trying to see, are you gonna see him as societal norms and stereotypes, or are you gonna see him for the way things are? Because if you look at this on paper and you don't, and pretend you didn't see this movie at all and didn't see how one thing led to another, how would you view Malcolm? Which is what he asked. How would you view him if you didn't know everything that happened leading up to the movie, leading up to the end of the movie? How would you view him? Would you view him as innocent and a student, or would you view him as a thug and he's naive? Because literally, regardless of how you view him, I still think that he handled things better than I would, better than a lot of people would. Like, he was calmer than I definitely would have been. You see how calm he is in this movie throughout this entire movie. He doesn't really get upset. Of course, it begins to get too much, but he doesn't get upset and stuff like that. And when his friends was like, "Hey, this is too much for us," instead of him getting mad, which I've seen in other movies where he's like, "Oh, nah, you ain't down for me. You don't want to ride with me. When things get tough, you want to leave." Nah, he was understanding. He's like, "Yeah, you're right. I got us into this. It's about time I get us out." I think that's very important. How he was mature enough to realize when his friends came to him, which, I applaud his friends for letting him know, "Hey man, it's too much." His friends stuck with him all the time because they were always honest with each other. His friends let him know it was too much. He let his friends know he's sorry for getting them caught up in the situation. He handled it and got them out of it. And that's why I think that this movie is it's definitely one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. But definitely me watching this in middle school when I was 13, it made me think so much at that time about how self-awakening people can be once they decide, do you yourself fit into these stereotypes? Because this wasn't just a matter of society putting stereotypes on him. It was a matter of finding that where do you fit within these stereotypes, if you fit within these stereotypes at all, because they defined who they were and they accepted who they were, and they were themselves throughout this entire movie. They didn't fold. I mean, yeah, you could see the character development and the change, but they stayed true to themselves. They stayed true to what they liked. They stayed true to what they enjoyed, and they were able to go through this experience. And I think that's one of the greatest things about this movie is you watch him go through something that is life-changing, but also watch him remain similar to the same person he was at the beginning of the movie. And I think that's important.